Hey guys, it's Harry the Red Bagnall Engine here, and yes, we are starting to do reviews again. Now, I know I haven't done a review in quite a while. The reason for that was because I just wanted to have a break from them, but I am delighted to say that the review series is going to start happening again. But without further ado, what are we reviewing today? Today, we are doing a review on the show Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. Now, just before I get into the review, I just want to say to anyone who doesn't like this show, I will respect your opinion, but as long as you respect mine in return. But anyway, let's get this review series back on track, starting with... Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find much production history regarding the show, but what we do know is Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom started in 2009 and ran up till 2013. Yeah, not the longest of run times in my opinion. The show was created by Mark Baker and Neville Astley. Yeah, literally the exact same people who created Peppa Pig. That is very interesting, I must say. The two main characters in this show are Ben and Holly. Ben is an elf, while Holly is a fairy, and the two of them are written as being best friends. Honestly, this is something that I really like, because a lot of media seems to depict boys being best friends with boys, and girls being best friends with girls. I actually do like that Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom actually changed this and made Ben and Holly, a boy and a girl, be best friends. A really nice subtle change in my opinion. Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom aired on Channel 5 and Nick Jr. in the UK. Yeah, and another thing too, Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom actually did air in America. The show even got a US dub. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any recordings for it, which is a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have heard what the US dub sounded like. And I think that's about it for production history. Yeah, not really a lot to talk about with this show. But hey, at least I managed to talk about something. But without further ado, let's get on to the next topic, which is... Now, like a lot of other TV shows, Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom also has a lot of characters. Characters like Holly, Ben, King Thistle, Queen Thistle, Nanny Plum, Mr. Elf, Mrs. Elf. Honestly, the list goes on with Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. But the best character for me would have to be Nanny Plum. Like, oh my god, I don't even know where to start with Nanny Plum, but I really like her because of how savage she is. Whether she's arguing with the wise old elf, making jelly floods, losing her magic license, getting covered in porridge, getting covered in flour. Yeah, the list goes on with Nanny Plum. The other character I probably really like as well would have to be King Thistle. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't I pick the wise old elf, considering a lot of people pick him? In my opinion, I just find King Thistle a bit more enjoyable. I like King Thistle because I always find it funny when he complains about his birthday, and yet he always enjoys it in the end. That, to me, is honestly just really funny. And the stuff that King Thistle gets himself into, he's a really good character, honestly. Now, usually when I'm watching a show, I always tend to find a character that I don't like. But honestly, I don't really dislike any of the characters in Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom, which is kind of a shocker, really. But I just find them all to be unique in their own way, and I just find all of them just really enjoyable, honestly. Yeah, not that much to say when it comes to characters, but again, there's just no character I really dislike in this show. But now we'll get on to the next topic, which is going to cover... Yes, for the next segment of this video, I decided that I would join the next two topics together as one big one. So I'm going to start with talking about my favourite episode from this show and my least favourite episode from this show. So starting with my favourite episode. If I could choose one episode that I really, really liked the most, I'd probably have to go with Gaston's birthday. And the reason I've chosen this episode is because I like how King Thistle is written in this episode. King Thistle is written as not liking his birthday because it means he's getting older, and he also doesn't like birthday parties. But we learn in this episode that King Thistle secretly loves his birthday parties. He just doesn't want to admit it. But throughout the episode, everyone plans to party for Gaston, and King Thistle thinks it's for him. Which, I'm not going to lie, seeing King Thistle thinking a present with spotty wrapping paper, a card with a picture of Gaston on it is for him. Honestly, I'm not really sure what to say about that, other than I think it's actually really humorous. However, if there's one episode from this show that I could choose that I really don't like, I would have to go with Gaston to the Rescue. Now, judging by this episode title, you might think, huh? What's wrong with this episode? It sounds like a really good one. Well, it's how the characters like Mr. Elf and King Thistle are written. Now, in this episode, Ben and Holly are playing with Gaston in the meadow. However, it starts to rain, so they decide to go to the little castle to play indoors. Gaston comes too, but when they get into the little castle, Gaston runs around Nanny Plum's kitchen, leaving muddy footprints everywhere. Nanny Plum, which in this situation I can understand, gets annoyed by this and tells Gaston to move. Gaston obviously doesn't listen, so he goes upstairs to see King Thistle. Now this, to me, is where the episode starts going a little bit downhill. Gaston jumps onto King Thistle and licks his face, causing King Thistle to get really angry, and tells Holly, "We live in the castle, Gaston lives outside." So Ben and Holly go back outside with Gaston and head towards the Great Elf Tree. Mrs. Elf has baked a pie, and when they arrive, Gaston eats it. Now, again, I can sort of understand why Mrs. Elf is very annoyed at Gaston. I mean, I would be if someone ate my food. But the fact that Mr. Elf saying, "Out, Gaston, I never want to see you again." Like, I'm sorry, what the heck? That's going way too far. Just because Gaston ate the pie does not mean you should say something like, "Out, Gaston, I don't ever want to see you again for eating that food." That's just going way too far, Mr. Elf. Like, what the heck? And if that isn't bad enough, when Gaston comes back to the little castle because of the rain, King Thistle tells Gaston to shut up and make his crying somewhere else. King Thistle, you do realise that if a pet is cold and wet, you should let them in to keep them warm. Just because Gaston annoyed you does not mean you should deny him not wanting to come in. Like, this episode makes me so annoyed. Mind you, though, I do like that at the end, Mr. Elf and King Thistle do learn their lesson, but in my opinion, that still doesn't make this episode good, and that is the reason why I consider this to be the worst episode of the show. But overall, it's the only episode of this show that I would consider bad. Every other episode I've watched of Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom is honestly either really funny, mediocre, or okay. I've never really seen a bad one. Okay, now that we've talked about a good episode and a bad episode, I now want to talk about one thing that I like about the show and a thing that I don't like. So I'll start with what I like. The one thing that I really like about the show is, honestly, it's really clever writing. the writing is kind of like a comedy for children, which honestly I really like. Every episode, or nearly every episode I watch, always gets me chuckling because of its clever writing, clever humour, and loads of other stuff. It's honestly really good, to be fair. Now, if there's one thing that I actually don't like about the series, it would actually have to be the amount of people who call Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom a Peppa Pig rip-off. I'm sorry, what? I'm not trying to opinion bash anyone, but this show is not a rip-off of Peppa Pig. And I'll explain that because, one, it's made by the exact same people who made Peppa Pig, which was Mark Baker and Neville Astley. It even uses the same voice actors. I'm sorry to say, guys, that this show is not a rip-off to Peppa Pig. Yes, it's got the same art style, but it's made by the same people who created Peppa Pig. So this show is not a rip-off. Honestly, it just so annoys me, the amount of people who call this Ben and Holly a rip-off to Peppa Pig. But that's just my opinion. Okay, now that I've talked about all the topics that I wanted to talk about for this video, I now want to give my overall personal thoughts on Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. Now, if I could rate the show out of 10, what would I rate it? I would rate Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom an 8 out of 10. So, a really good show. The reason I'm giving it an 8 is only because of the episode Gaston to the Rescue and with how awfully written the start of that is. But other than that, this show is absolutely amazing and is very underrated. Alright then, guys, that brings us to the end of our first review video in ages. Now, I do apologise for any audio changes during this video because obviously this audio was recorded on separate days. So if you ever notice what sounds like not very much energy, just notice just because this audio was recorded over several days and my energy was different each day. So you have to excuse that, I'm afraid, guys. And another thing as well, when a lot of these reviews now are going to feature my red background during the editing, just to see if it will stop copyright restrictions. Can't promise that, but it's something I've seen a lot of people doing, which I want to try. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this new review video for the first time in a while. And the next one hopefully will be the Ivor one. And then what show I'll do next, I've no idea. I'll keep you guys updated on that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, y'all, and see you next time.